from the minister then was that this sentencing bill that we've just seen go through first reading will increase pressure on the judicial and justice system generally. In fact, if we go back and look at the regulatory impact statement for that bill, you'll see that the projected costs over 10 years are $150 million. Now, the government has recognised that there is a significant backlog in the courts, and their solution to that is to appoint one more judge and give the whole system a whole lot more work. And I couldn't help recognise the slight tinge of bitterness in the minister's tone, but he's got to learn to do things right, because he did want to cobble these two bills together and have them go through this House as one. But I want this bill, to be honest, we're supporting it, we get it, we don't want longer times for people on remand or victims waiting to see what's happening with their trial. But we don't want that to cloud the examination of the sentencing bill. And the fact of the matter is that the sentencing bill places some quite significant burdens on the district court. And we heard, one of the reasons we need this judge is we heard that in terms of the sentencing bill, the courts will have to keep a record.
Whoa!
What happened there?
I think this is what happens when Parliament has little balls ups in the way they do things. Let's see if it continues on from hopefully
judge and give the whole system a whole lot more work. And I couldn't help recognise the slight tinge of bitterness in the minister's tone, but he's got to learn to do things right, because he did want to cobble these two bills together and have them go through this House as one. But I want this bill, to be honest, we're supporting it, we get it, we don't want longer times for people on remand or victims waiting to see what's happening with their trial. But we don't want that to cloud the examination of the sentencing bill. And the fact of the matter is that the sentencing bill places some quite significant burdens on the district court. And we heard, one of the reasons we need this judge is we heard that in terms of the sentencing bill, the courts will have to keep a record of discounts or whatever, reductions, mitigations for youth and for remorse. Now, someone in the Ministry of Justice is probably just, scratching their head if they know how the justice system works, because keeping it on the permanent record actually is no more than writing it on a bit of paper. And the members of the Justice Committee who attended the last meeting will know, because we had good discussion with the Chief Executive of Justice, Secretary for Justice, that a file is it's just that. It's a paper file. There is no centrally kept permanent record. So frankly, I don't know how the courts are going to look and find to make sure that someone doesn't get 2 youth discounts or 2 remorse discounts or whatever it might be. And that is actually going to create more workload, not just for one more judge, but for registry staff as well. Now, what we need is the digitisation project to be completed, and that's where the energy of that government should be, rather than distracting ministry officials to sentencing frameworks which, by their own riz, they say is worse than the status quo, and where they say there are much better and more effective interventions to make better sentencing decisions. But rather than that, we've got $150 million of costs to the justice system overall over 10 years. We've got a need for another judge, and I suspect it will be more than that over time. And we've got a whole new administrative system to keep tabs on how many discounts for remorse or youth offending there's been. So that minister needs to work out where his energies should go, because he's complaining about decisions of the Business Committee, but he's the minister who goes to Business Committee time and again and asks for extensions of time, because his ministry can't keep up, or he hasn't quite worked out what he's going to do yet. So the fact of the matter is that this bill, it's a small bill. Another judge isn't a matter of high importance. We support it, but we support it not because the reforms of this government are good, but we support it because we think that people engaged in the justice system, from victims to offenders, accused, whether they're innocent or guilty, deserve to have an effective and timely system. And we will be watching very closely to see whether that is what the government delivers, because we have serious concerns about that and suspect that they're far and away not going to achieve that, because the Tā Oreka program, the real solution to this, is running into a few hurdles, as we heard the other day. That's where the energy should be going, not on worthless amendments such as these.
I think he makes the point. Is the number actually... Is one judge enough? And maybe we should be putting our money into, say, more registrars?
What's the judge to case ratio?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Story around this one. When Duncan actually taught me law way back in the dark old ages, but the story that this one brings to my mind is when I did a clerkship overseas quite a few years ago, in 2001, the law office I was working at we used to have to go down to the High Court to argue cases. And mind you, this is in 2001. Before we left the law office, we would submit documents electronically. They would all go into they would all be like, what's the word for it? Scanned into the court for all the cases that we were going through. And then we'd go down to court and sit in front of monitors like everyone sits in front of. And then the judge would come in, sit in front of a monitor, and then everyone would see the material that we were working in front of. We literally couldn't see the judge because the judge was sitting behind a monitor. It was quite freaky. And this was 20 years ago, more than 20 years ago now. So this is what this is what Duncan was talking about when he was talking about the electronic transformation project that the courts are trying to get through. Because at the moment, when you go to court, everything is paper, literally. And it's quite astonishing that we're still dealing with paper down at the court.
We can get cameras in courts and we can have audio-visual links, but we're still doing things by paper.
So I think Duncan's point is really quite on point, that actually we should be focusing on digitizing our courts, and that's where we get much more efficiency rather than putting one more judge in to paper over the cracks. And maybe they're running into trouble around that project where they should be actually focusing on, digitizing the courts. And that's what makes me laugh, because other countries around the world are, 20 years ahead of us.
So we are behind.
It just makes you laugh. And if you don't laugh, you'll probably cry. But,
or you're crying and laughing at the same time.
At the same time.